Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, in this week's edition of To Live and Die in LA, we have an opportunity to have either called a teachable moment or a learning opportunity. And what I'm talking about is an incident that has absolutely lit the exosphere on fire today. And that, of course, is the shooting with a non-lethal round of an Australian reporter. It has a lot of people already sending me messages asking me, hey, could this officer actually be charged with assault? Excellent question, and one that we're going to try to provide an answer for you today. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, was this Australian reporter assaulted by LAPD? Okay, America, and especially all of my friends down there in Los Angeles, buckle up. You guys have a few interesting days still left in front of you. As we know, the city of Los Angeles has been burning the last couple of days, peaceful protests, or as some people would want to call them. But what really lit the social media world afire was the shooting with non-lethal round of Australian journalist Lauren Tomasi. Now, we would go ahead and show the video here so you guys can see what happened. I know almost all of you have. If you haven't, it is linked up down below. If we show it here actually on YouTube, they're going to crap their pants and they're going to take the video down. But unlike a different incident, and I want you to understand that I think these reporters, obviously, when they're going into, well, what is essentially a war zone, certainly assume certain risks, okay? Just like reporters who go to cover combat zones, real combat zones, they assume a certain risk. And that risk is that you could be caught in crossfire, accidents can happen, and you, in fact, could be injured. And such was the case of BBC reporter Nick Stern, who was also covering the riots in Los Angeles and was struck in the leg by a rubber bullet, penetrated to such a point that he actually had to go in for emergency surgery. Now, there is no allegation whatsoever that Mr. Stern was intentionally fired upon or intentionally shot by any member of law enforcement. But when we get back to Miss Tomasi's case, you see, it may have been originally reported that she'd been caught in crossfire, but as it turns out, no, there are some very clear images here that a Los Angeles Police Department officer intentionally fired upon her. And the reason for which that officer chose to fire upon her remains a mystery to everybody, because it appears that Miss Tomasi was merely standing on the street with her cameraman doing her job. And so, yes, I think that while you are a reporter going into these very volatile areas, you certainly assume the risk that you could be caught in the crossfire or things like that. I'm not certain that you assume the risk that law enforcement is going to intentionally fire upon you because you are doing your job as a reporter. So, of course, that then begs the question, could this officer, if he could be identified, which I'm sure there are methods to do that, could that officer be charged with assault? Well, let's talk about self-defense laws in general, because what the purpose was of all law enforcement being down there was to secure the safety of the community and to protect people and property. And so therefore, if you are intentionally vandalizing property or you are intentionally assaulting people or any of that riotous behavior, yes, law enforcement has the legal authority to use reasonable force to defend others and or that property and or to make arrest. Anytime that an individual, law enforcement or otherwise, is going to use force in defense of themselves, others, or property, it must meet a three-part test. And that three-part test means that the force used must first be necessary. And this is where it falls apart for this particular LA police officer immediately. Because if Ms. Tomasi was engaged in some type of riotous behavior, if Ms. Tomasi was actually engaged in some type of criminal behavior, if Tomasi's actions were threatening the safety of others or the sanctity of property, then at least the officer could make the claim that the force he used was necessary. But again, it appears that all she's doing is standing there with her cameraman, microphone in hand, trying to do her job. And even if the officer could justify that the use of force was necessary, he must then also justify that the use of force was reasonable. And that has to be both in a subjective and objective standard, which means subjectively you put yourself in the officer's position and say, would I have done the same thing? That could be a problem right there. But then objectively, even if you subjectively believe the officer acted appropriately, you have to ask yourself from an objective standpoint, do we as a society want this sort of violence to be used in that type of defense? And again, that's where the defense could fall apart. But then finally, even if you've made it through the necessary test and you made it through the reasonable test, guess what? The use of force also has to be proportional. And although this is by definition the use of non-lethal force, I think we all need to recognize that even non-lethal ammunition can and will sometimes cause significant bodily injury. And if you don't believe us, ask BBC reporter Nick Stern. So, it would appear that this intentional use of force by this officer right here was neither necessary, nor was it reasonable, either subjectively or objectively, and in all probability was not proportional as well. And for that reason, if that officer could in fact be identified, we believe he should be charged with assault. All right, listen, we're going to go ahead and link up a few X posts down there so that if you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen what actually happened, you can watch it for yourself and be the judge for yourself. Let us know what you all think in the comment section below. And a final shout out, since this is a California video, we always want to give a shout out to our first ever California subscriber. Of course, that is Philip P. Philip, God help you down there. Your city's becoming a complete hellhole. Listen, if you guys got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, cool. Click on that link right there and tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter, the ability to do that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.